My beloved, come closer for a moment. Breathe. Let the noise soften and the tightness loosen its grip. This is not a call born of urgency meant to alarm you, but an invitation shaped by care, by patience, by a love that has watched quietly for a long time. I have seen you standing in places you should not have had to stand alone. I have watched you carry what was never meant to be yours to hold forever. And still, you kept going. Still, you hoped. There comes a moment when endurance is no longer the lesson, when waiting is no longer the wisdom, when silence has done its work and action becomes an act of mercy. This is that moment. I am not arriving late. I am not reacting in haste. I am stepping in with intention, with clarity, with a steadiness that cannot be shaken. You may feel it already, like a shift in the air before dawn breaks, like the stillness that comes right before a door opens. This is not disruption for the sake of change. This is protection. This is alignment. This is love taking form. Rest your heart here for a breath. You are not being judged for how long it took. You are not being measured against anyone else's pace. I am simply here now, standing where you grew tired of standing alone. And as this moment unfolds, you will understand why it could not have happened sooner, and why it cannot be delayed any longer. Enough is enough, and you are not alone anymore. My child, hear the weight and the tenderness in these words, because they are spoken for you. I am stepping in, not to overpower you, not to erase your voice, not to take away your choice, but to draw a line where love must finally speak louder than endurance. Enough is enough, not as a threat, as a promise. You have reached a place where effort alone can no longer carry you forward. You tried patience. You tried understanding. You tried being strong when you wanted to rest, and being kind when you felt empty. There is no shame in that. There is honor in how long you stayed hopeful. But there is also a wisdom in recognizing when something has run its course, when persistence turns into depletion, when waiting becomes a quiet form of harm. This moment is not random. It did not sneak up on you by accident. It has been approaching gently, step by step, as you grew more aware of what no longer fits, what no longer gives life, what quietly asks too much from your soul. The discomfort you feel is not failure. It is clarity waking up inside you. It is your heart realizing that survival is not the same as living. I am stepping in because you have carried this far enough. Because what you have faced does not require more striving but intervention. Because love does not always whisper. Sometimes love stands firm and says, "This ends here." Not to punish but to protect it. Not to control but to restore balance where it was lost. Feel the gravity of this moment without fear. Sacred urgency does not rush. It steadies. It angers. It brings focus to what truly matters. You are not being pushed into chaos. You are being guided out of stagnation. The ground beneath you is not breaking apart. It is being reshaped so you can stand without trembling. I know you have questioned yourself, wondered if you were asking for too much, if you should just try harder, wait longer, adjust yourself again. But listen closely now. Love does not demand that you disappear. Truth does not ask you to shrink. Peace does not require you to bleed quietly to earn it. When I say enough is enough, I am honoring the limit of what you were meant to endure. This is a turning of the tide, a quiet but undeniable shift. What once felt immovable is losing its hold. What once dominated your thoughts is being placed back into proper scale. You are not responsible for holding everything together anymore. You were never meant to. I am stepping in to bring clarity where confusion lingered, rest where exhaustion settled, and direction where you felt lost in circles. This does not erase your past efforts, it completes them. Every step you took led here, to this moment where love meets resolve. Stay with me here. Do not rush ahead in fear or cling backward in habit. Simply stand in this truth. You are allowed to stop fighting what was never meant to stay. You are allowed to release what no longer honors who you are becoming. And you are allowed to trust that when I step in, it is always for your good. Enough truly is enough. And from this point forward, things will not remain the same. Not because everything changes at once, but because you no longer carry it alone. My precious one, before anything shifts outward, before paths realign and burdens loosen their grip, I want you to know this with certainty. You have been seen, not glanced at, not partially understood, fully seen. In the quiet moments when you told yourself to be strong one more time, in the nights when your thoughts grew louder because the world finally went silent, in the small, brave ways you kept showing up when you felt empty inside, nothing about you has gone unnoticed. I have seen the way you questioned yourself, wondering if you were too sensitive, too tired, too much. I've seen the restraint it took to hold your tongue when you wanted to speak, the courage it took to keep loving when you felt unprotected. I have seen you minimize your pain so others could feel comfortable, and I have seen the cost of that kindness weigh heavily on your spirit. Even when you doubted your own experience, I did not doubt you. There were moments you assumed no one understood how deep it went. Moments when you thought, if they really knew, they would see why I'm struggling. I knew. I know. Every layer, every contradiction. Your strength and your softness have always been held together in my gaze without confusion or judgment. You did not imagine the heaviness. You did not exaggerate the fatigue. You did not fail because you felt worn down. What you endured required resilience, and you met it with more grace than you realize. Even when your faith in yourself wavered, even when hope fell thin, you continued. That matters. You always has. Let me be clear about something your heart needs to hear. Nothing you went through was wasted. Not the waiting. Not the effort. Not the tears you wiped away quickly so no one would ask questions. Every experience shaped discernment within you. Every disappointment refined your understanding of what is life-giving and what is not. You were learning, even when it felt like you were simply surviving. You are not behind. You are not delayed. You are not broken for needing reassurance now. Growth does not always look like forward motion. Sometimes it looks like endurance, like learning where your limits are, like realizing you cannot pour endlessly without being filled. That awareness is not weakness. It is wisdom forming quietly. I see the longing you tried to ignore. The desire for peace that isn't fragile, for connection that doesn't drain you, for a life that feels aligned rather than constantly negotiated. You told yourself not to want too much, not to expect relief, not to hope for ease. But those desires were never wrong. They were signals, gently pointing you toward truth. You never had to earn being known by performing better or holding on longer. You never had to prove your worth through suffering. I have always known your heart beneath the coping, your sincerity beneath the exhaustion, your intentions beneath the missteps. Even the parts of you struggle to accept have been met with understanding here. So rest in this recognition for a moment. Let it settle. You are not invisible. You are not misunderstood. You are not carrying a story that no one cares to hear. I know where you've been, and I know why it marked you the way it did. And because you are known this deeply, you are also held this securely. From this place of being seen, true change becomes possible, not because you are trying harder, but because you are no longer doing it alone. My beloved, there is a moment that arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, yet it carries the weight of a lifetime. This is that moment. You are standing at a threshold, not between right and wrong, not between success and failure, but between remaining as you were and becoming who you are ready to be. Thresholds do not shout. They wait. They ask. They invite. You can feel it, even if you cannot yet explain it. Something in you knows that returning to the way things were is no longer possible. Not because everything was terrible, but because you have changed. The ground you once stood on no longer holds the same meaning. The patterns you once tolerated now feel heavy in your hands. This awareness is not meant to scare you. It is meant to awaken you. There is significance in responding now, not tomorrow, not after one more cycle of hoping it will resolve itself. Now, because clarity has come close enough to touch. Because you can no longer say you didn't know. Because drifting, once a refuge, would now be a quiet surrender of truth. And I did not bring you this far to leave you undecided at the doorway of your own becoming. Standing at a threshold can feel unsettling. One foot remembers the familiar, even if it was painful. The other senses possibility but cannot yet see the full shape of it. Your mind may reach backward, replaying what you invested, what you sacrificed, what you hoped would eventually make sense. Your heart, however, is leaning forward. Trust that lean. It is not recklessness. It is recognition. This moment matters because awareness brings responsibility, not the heavy kind that burdens, but the sacred kind that liberates. You are not being asked to have every answer. You are being asked to notice where you are. To admit, gently and honestly, that something is ending so something truer can begin. Avoidance once protected you. Now it only delays your peace. I am not asking you to leap blindly. I am asking you to stop pretending that standing still is neutral. There is a difference between patience and postponement, between resting and hiding. You have rested long enough to hear your own voice again. Now the invitation is to honor what it is telling you. The threshold is not a demand. It is a meeting place. On one side is the version of you who learned through endurance, who survived by adapting, who stayed quiet to keep balance. On the other side is the version of you who understands that balance cannot be sustained by self-erasure. Neither version is wrong, but only one can carry you forward. Clarity does not always arrive as certainty. Sometimes it arrives as a deep, calm knowing that something is complete. That knowing is present in you now. It shows up as a gentle resistance to returning to old patterns, as a fatigue that no amount of rationalizing can dismiss. It is not confusion. It is conclusion. You may fear that stepping forward will cost you something, and it may. Thresholds often ask for what no longer belongs with you. But hear this. What you release here makes room for what you have been asking for in quieter ways. What you leave behind is not your identity. It is the weight you carried while discovering it. I am here at this threshold with you. Not ahead of you, not behind you. With you. You do not cross alone, and you do not cross unprepared. Every insight you gained, every boundary you learned to feel, every truth that surfaced through discomfort has been equipping you for this exact moment. Do not rush. Do not retreat. Simply acknowledge where you stand. That acknowledgement itself is a step. And once you take it, even softly, the path forward will begin to reveal itself, not all at once, but enough for you to keep moving with trust instead of fear. My child, before you move any further, let us pause gently and name what has been standing in your way, not to accuse, not to shame, but to loosen its hold. Barriers lose much of their power once they are seen clearly. Until then, they whisper lies in the dark and convince you they are part of who you are. They are not. One of these barriers has been doubt. Not loud doubt, but the quiet kind that questions your own perception. The kind that asks whether you are overreacting, whether your needs are too much, whether your feelings are valid enough to act upon. This doubt did not come from weakness. It came from being asked again and again to adjust yourself instead of being met. Over time, you learn to second-guess what you felt. But doubt is not your wisdom. It is a learned response, and it can be unlearned. Another barrier has been fear. Not fear of failure, but fear of disruption. Fear of what might happen if you stop holding everything together. Fear of disappointing others, of being misunderstood, of stepping into the unknown without guarantees. This fear has kept you vigilant, careful, constantly scanning for what might go wrong. It helped you survive. But survival is not where your story ends. There is also exhaustion. Deep, layered exhaustion that no amount of rest alone could resolve, because it wasn't only physical. It came from carrying emotional weight without relief, from managing situations that required constant self-monitoring, from staying alert in spaces where you long to relax. Exhaustion can blur clarity. It can make even simple decisions feel overwhelming. But tiredness is not truth. It is a signal asking for gentleness and change. Confusion has played its part as well. Mixed messages, giving expectations, moments where what was said did not match what was done. This inconsistency trained you to hesitate, to wait for clearer signs that never fully arrived. Confusion is not a flaw in you. It is often the result of environments that were unclear or unsafe to navigate honestly. Your desire for clarity is healthy. It always had been. And then there are the external voices. Opinions, advice, subtle pressures that told you to be grateful, to be patient, to not rock the boat. Some meant well. Some were protecting their own comfort. Over time, these voices grew louder than your own, and you began to believe that peace required your silence. It does not. Hear me clearly now. None of these barriers define you. They are not your character. They are not your destiny. They are experiences you had, weights you carried, adaptations you made in order to endure. They served a purpose once. They do not get to decide what comes next. You are not indecisive. You have been cautious because you learned that choices had consequences you had to manage alone. You are not weak. You have been tired from being strong without support. You are not confused. You have been discerning in complex situations. There is a difference. Even hesitation, which you may criticize yourself for, hath been a form of care. It slowed you down when rushing would have caused harm. But hesitation is meant to be temporary. When clarity arrives, hesitation must give way to trust. I am not asking you to fight these barriers. Fighting often gives them more attention than they deserve. I am asking you to recognize them, thank them for how they once protected you, and then release them. You no longer need armor in a place where you are learning to breathe again. As these barriers loosen, you may feel exposed at first. Vulnerability can feel like risk when you've been guarded for a long time. But vulnerability in the right moment is not danger, it is alignment. It is honesty returning to your body. It is your spirit standing upright again. Nothing inside you is broken. And nothing about your hesitation disqualifies you. These barriers were chapters, not conclusions. And now, as they fall away, you will begin to feel lighter, not because everything is solved, but because you are no longer mistaking what you carried for who you are. Stay here with me. The path ahead becomes clearer once the weight is named and set down. My beloved, now that the weight has been named and the barriers no longer hide in shadow, let me show you what has been waiting beneath the strain. This is not a promise meant to impress you or lure you forward with illusions. This is a promise shaped by truth, by nearness, by a future that grows naturally when you stop forcing what was never meant to hold. What awaits you is peace, not the fragile kind that depends on everything going right, but the steady kind that remains even when circumstances are still unfolding. It is the kind of peace that settles into your breath, that softens the tight places in your body, that allows you to wake without bracing yourself for impact. This peace does not arrive because you finally did enough. It arrives because you are no longer carrying what was never yours to manage alone. There is healing here, too. Not as a dramatic moment that erases the past, but as a gradual restoration that feels surprisingly gentle. Healing will meet you in ordinary moments, in how you respond differently, in how your nervous system learns safety again, in how your heart begins to trust its own signals. You will notice that certain things no longer hook into you the way they once did. Old wounds lose their sharpness. What once defined you becomes something you remember without being ruled by. Clarity is part of this promise. Not constant certainty, but enough light for the next step. You will begin to recognize what aligns with you and what drains you without needing long explanations. Decisions will feel less like battles and more like acknowledgments of truth. When something is not for you, your body will know. When something is right, you will feel a quiet yes instead of a restless negotiation. Restoration does not mean returning to who you were before you were hurt. It means becoming more fully who you are now, wiser, more discerning, more compassionate with yourself. You will not lose your tenderness in this process. You will learn how to protect it without hiding it. Strength and softness will no longer feel like opposites inside you. There is also forward movement here. Not hurried, not forced, but real. Doors that remained closed despite your effort will no longer require you to push. Relationships will shift, some deepening, some releasing, without the constant anxiety of holding everything together. You will find yourself drawn toward spaces where your presence is welcomed, not merely tolerated, where your voice does not feel like an interruption. Understand this clearly. None of this is offered as a transaction. You are not being promised ease in exchange for obedience or certainty in exchange for surrender. This is relationship, not reward. This is what unfolds when you walk in alignment instead of self-abandonment. When you allow yourself to be supported rather than endlessly self-sufficient. You may wonder if it is too much to hope for, if you should guard yourself from disappointment. But hope here is not naive. It is informed by everything you have learned. You are not starting from nothing. You are starting from truth. I am not promising that every path will be smooth or that challenges will disappear. I am promising that you will not face them without grounding. That when difficulty arises, it will no longer convince you that you are failing. That when uncertainty appears, it will not steal your sense of direction. This promise is not loud. It does not rush you. It simply waits, steady and patient, ready to meet you as you move forward honestly. And as you do, you will begin to realize that what you were seeking all along was not escape, but alignment. Not rescue, but companionship. Not control, but peace. This is what is being revealed now, and it is already closer than you think. My precious one, now we arrive at a moment that is often misunderstood. Surrender has been spoken of to you as loss, as giving up, as disappearing. But that was never its true meaning. What I offer you here is not surrender as defeat, but surrender as exchange. A sacred meeting where what has weighed you down, is gently placed into hands that can carry it without strain. You have been holding so much for so long. Responsibilities that grew heavier with time. Emotions you learned to manage quietly so they would not inconvenience anyone. Guilt for needing rest. Anxiety for wanting clarity. Shame for reaching your limit. None of this made you stronger in the way you hoped. It only made you tired. Surrender now is not failure. It is wisdom choosing relief. I am not asking you to release everything at once. That would feel impossible. I am asking you to open your hands, slowly, honestly, and let go of what you were never meant to keep gripping so tightly. Control that costs you peace. Self-blame that keeps you stuck. The belief that if you loosen your hold, everything will fall apart. It will not. What is meant to remain will remain. What falls away was already too heavy. This exchange is gentle. You release striving, and you receive steadiness. You release guilt, and you receive permission to breathe. You release the need to explain yourself endlessly, and you receive clarity about where you stand. Nothing is taken from you without something truer being given in its place. You may notice resistance rising as you consider this. A voice that says, "If I don't hold this together, who will?" Or, "If I stop worrying, something will go wrong." That voice has tried to protect you. Acknowledge it with kindness. Then remind it that vigilance is not the same as care. Constant tension is not the same as love. You are allowed to rest without everything unraveling. Surrender does not strip you of agency. It restores it. When you stop expending energy on what you cannot control, you begin to recognize where your true influence lies. You regain access to your intuition. Your boundaries become clearer. Your decisions feel less frantic and more grounded. You move from reaction into response. There is a sacred exchange happening within you even now. As you loosen your grip, your breath deepens. As you stop rehearsing worst-case outcomes, your body remembers what calm feels like. As you release the story that you must earn rest, you begin to experience it as something natural, something deserved. I am not asking you to trust blindly. I am asking you to notice the relief that comes when you stop resisting what you already know. Surrender is not about collapsing. It is about aligning. It is about allowing truth to take up more space than fear. You do not lose yourself here. You find yourself. The version of you that emerges from surrender is not weaker. It is more present, more honest, more capable of discernment. You begin to feel the difference between what drains you and what nourishes you, and you honor that difference without apology. Stay with this exchange. Do not rush past it. Let yourself feel what it is like to be supported rather than braced, to be held rather than vigilant. This is not a one-time moment, but a practice you can return to again and again. Each time you release what is not yours, you receive something steadier in return. This is the sacred exchange, and it is changing you quietly, deeply, from the inside out. My beloved, what unfolds within you is meant to be lived, not only felt in quiet moments. Alignment is not an idea. It is a way of moving through your days with less resistance and more honesty. This is where inner truth begins to shape outer life, gently and consistently, without force. Begin by noticing your pace. You have grown accustomed to moving quickly, anticipating needs, staying one step ahead of discomfort. Alignment invites a different rhythm. Not slow for the sake of slowness, but intentional. Pause before responding. Breathe before deciding. Give yourself permission to feel the difference between urgency and importance. What truly matters will not vanish if you take a moment to listen. Your time is sacred, even if you were taught to treat it as endlessly available. Notice where it drains away without return. Notice which interactions leave you tense and which leave you settled. Alignment does not require dramatic exits or confrontations. Often, it begins with small, quiet choices, saying no without explanation, leaving earlier, resting without guilt, choosing simplicity over constant stimulation. Your relationships are part of this realignment. You are not responsible for maintaining connection at the cost of your own well-being. Pay attention to where you feel you must perform, explain, or shrink to remain included. That effort is information. Alignment draws you towards spaces where presence is enough, where you do not have to earn your place through overextension. Let peace become your internal compass. Not excitement, not fear, not obligation, but peace. Peace does not always feel comfortable at first. It can feel unfamiliar when chaos was normal. But peace has a distinct quality. It does not rush you. It does not demand that you abandon yourself. It feels steady, even when choices are challenging. Your energy, too, is a form of stewardship. Notice how you speak to yourself. The tone you use inwardly shapes your nervous system more than you realize. Alignment asks for gentleness here. Replace harsh correction with curiosity. Replace self-criticism with honest reflection. You are more likely to grow when you feel safe within yourself. Daily life will continue to bring responsibilities and decisions. Alignment does not remove complexity. It changes how you meet it. You will find yourself choosing clarity over chaos, rest over resentment, truth over people-pleasing. These choices may feel small, but they accumulate. Over time, they reshape your experience of living. You may encounter resistance from others as you realign. Not because you are wrong, but because your steadiness may disrupt familiar dynamics. You are not required to convince anyone of your growth. Let your consistency speak. Let your calm become explanation enough. Practical alignment also means honoring your body. Hunger, fatigue, tension, and ease are all forms of communication. You learn to override these signals to meet expectations. Now listen. When you rest, you are not falling behind. You are recalibrating. When you eat, move, and breathe with awareness, you are grounding truth into form. Do not wait for perfect conditions to live this way. Alignment happens in imperfect days, in ordinary choices, in moments when you decide to respond differently than you once did. Each aligned choice strengthens your trust in yourself. Each moment of honesty reinforces your sense of direction. You are not being asked to become someone new overnight. You are being invited to live as who you already are, without apology or straying. Alignment is not rigid. It is responsive. It adjusts as you grow. And as you practice it, you will notice something subtle but profound. Life begins to feel less like something you must manage, and more like something you are allowed to inhabit. Stay present. Stay gentle. Peace will guide you, one honest step at a time. My beloved, we have arrived at the place where knowing becomes choosing. Not a dramatic crossroads with pressure and spectacle, but a quiet, sacred moment where truth asks for your consent. I will not decide for you. I will stand with you as you decide. Love never coerces. It invites. The choice before you is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is about whether you will continue to abandon yourself in subtle ways, or whether you will begin to honor what you now know. You are not choosing between comfort and discomfort. You are choosing between familiarity and truth. Familiarity may feel safer because you know its contours, even when it hurts. Truth feels unfamiliar at first because it asks you to trust what is emerging rather than what has already been survived. You do not need to change everything today. You do not need to announce anything to anyone. The most powerful choices are often the quiet ones made within. The moment you decide to stop betraying your own knowing, something inside you settles. You feel it as a soft firmness, a grounded resolve that does not need to argue or defend itself. This is where spoken declarations become anchors, not as magical formulas, not as performances, but as gentle alignments of your voice with your truth. Words shape inner reality when they are spoken honestly. They help your nervous system recognize safety. They help your heart recognize direction. So speak, either aloud or within, and let these words be offerings rather than demands. Say, I choose to trust what I know without needing permission. Say, I release the belief that my worth is proven through endurance. Say, I allow myself to move at the pace of peace. As you speak, notice what shifts. There may be emotion. There may be resistance. There may be relief. All of it is welcome. Declarations are not meant to silence parts of you. They are meant to gather you into coherence. Say, I choose clarity over confusion, even when clarity requires courage. Say, I choose rest without guilt and truth without apology. Say, I am allowed to let go of what no longer aligns with who I am becoming. These words are not commands to the universe. They are commitments to yourself. Each time you speak them, you reinforce a boundary that protects your energy and a path that honors your growth. You may worry about failing this choice, about slipping back into old habits. Hear me now. Choosing alignment is not a one-time event. It is a practice. You will choose again and again, sometimes with ease, sometimes with effort. What matters is not flawless consistency, but honest return. Each time you notice and realign, you strengthen your trust in yourself. Say, I choose to return to myself when I drift. Say, I choose compassion over self-judgment. Say, I choose to listen when my body and heart speak. Let these declarations be living words, revisited when you feel unsteady. They are not rules, they are reminders. They point you back to the center you are learning to inhabit. This choice also includes what you will no longer carry. You are allowed to choose not to explain yourself endlessly. You are allowed to choose not to stay where you are diminished. You are allowed to choose relationships and rhythms that support your nervous system, not just your obligations. Say, I release the need to be understood by everyone. Say, I release the fear that choosing myself will cost me love. Say, I trust that what aligns with me will remain. As you make these choices, something quiet but powerful happens. Your inner world becomes less divided. Your energy stops leaking into constant negotiation. You begin to stand in yourself with a steadiness that others may feel even if they cannot name it. This is your choice. Made gently. Made honestly. Made with support. And as you choose, know this. You are not stepping into uncertainty alone. You are stepping into alignment with a presence that has never left you, that honors your freedom, and that walks with you as you become more fully yourself. Choose now, not with fear but with trust. The path will meet you as you do. My beloved, rest here for a moment. Let everything that hath been stirred begin to settle, not into urgency, but into assurance. You do not need to carry this message forward with effort. It will walk with you naturally, woven into your breath, your posture, your choices. What has shifted cannot be undone, because it was not imposed from the outside. It rose from truth already alive within you. You are not leaving this moment alone. You are not stepping back into life unsupported. What comes next will unfold with a steadiness that may surprise you. Not everything will change at once, but you will. And that change will quietly alter how everything else meets you. When doubt tries to revisit, remember how it felt when clarity arrived. When old habits call you back, remember the relief of setting weight down. When fear whispers that choosing yourself was too costly, remember the peace that followed honesty. These memories are anchors. They will guide you gently, again and again. You do not need to prove what has happened here. You do not need to explain it or defend it. Let your calm be your evidence. Let your boundaries be your language. Let your softened spirit be your testimony. Those who are meant to understand will feel it without words. I remain with you, not as pressure, not as demand, but as presence. In the pauses, in the decisions, in the quiet courage it takes to live aligned in a world that often rewards strain. When you forget, I will remind you through peace. When you hesitate, I will steady you through clarity. When you rest, I will guard that rest. And so we seal this moment gently, without force, without fear. Let it echo softly within you as a truth you can return to whenever you need strength wrapped in tenderness. I'm stepping in. Enough is enough. And from here forward, you are held, guided, and no longer walking alone.